Yeah.
Awesome. So, Owen, thank you so much for joining me on Strength for Tomorrow Radio. It's been a pleasure. I chatted to you briefly last week, and it was a pleasure chatting to you and finding out more about you. Do you want to tell us quickly about yourself, personally, professionally, and all of that?
Yeah. So thanks a million for having me on, Stuart. Really appreciate it. So professionally, I suppose I'm a chartered physiotherapist here in Ireland, down in Kilkenny. I have a PhD in biomechanics, focus on more of the human movement side of things. And then like I'm quite into running. I'm a 5-time national champion. I'm sub 4-minute miler, sub 14 minutes, so like 13:58 for 5K, and sub 30 minutes for 10K. So yeah, that's happily married down in Kilkenny as well. So that's me.
Wow. Those times are ridiculous. I'm not a runner by any stretch, but I was even thinking of what you're I was looking up. Is it 10K in under 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Like that would nearly take me that long to do a 5K. So you'd be like 2 lengths ahead of me.
I
There's
know,
the time I got
it's
5K.
funny, yeah.
I think 21 minutes, I think was the best ever mustered, but that was I was nearly needing a defib at that stage.
Yeah,
But
it's different fitnesses, and anything under 20 minutes is very good.
yeah, that's impressive. And you've done all sorts of distances, have you? From 800 meters to
Yeah, so I started as a kind of more of the 400, 800 meter runner. And then as you get older and you get a little bit slower, you just gradually move up. And then I really focus, like my main success would have come at like the 1500, the mile. And then later in my career, I was like, you know what, let's just as a challenge, see, can I break 14 minutes for 5K, break 8 minutes for 3K, and break 30 minutes for 10K. And I was lucky to do that.
Very good. And how did you get into running? Was it through school or what?
Yeah, just like we played. Yeah, exactly. No, then I did everything, and it's always a good way to be, isn't it? Just like from rugby to gymnastics to running. And I was just always naturally like fit and fast. So you kind of just tend to lend yourself towards that side of things.
Yeah. And do you find like you're a natural runner in the sense that not from a biomechanical point of view, but even a body composition point of view?
Yeah.
You'd be quite lean and you wouldn't.
Yeah, I do. I was actually just thinking this literally on the way up, that my brother played a lot more rugby. And I feel like at around like 14, 15, 16, it's so important to like have like children active, because I really feel like at those ages, they kind of shape the body you're going to have. I was literally thinking that on the stairs on the way up here, that like me and Killian used to look very similar. And then I was doing a bit of the gym as well. I was starting to get bigger. And then I got into running at about 16. And all of a sudden, like, because you're running miles, you're doing things, your frame even changes. I was always kind of naturally skinny, but your frame changes towards a distance runner. And he would have been naturally enough skinny, but he would have got into rugby and his frame kind of naturally changed to be more of a rugby player build. So I do think like what you do at that ages, around that puberty age, is like so important. It kind of just will shape you. So if I was just sitting doing nothing, I feel like that'll be the kind of shape I'll have.
Yeah. No, I definitely think there's something to that. I would even notice, I think, from training clients, even later on. So like maybe more from like a habit standpoint, but the habits you kind of get into and the things you eat and drink and all those things, and yes, activity, but even the age sort of between 20 and 25, maybe even stretch out to 30, but those kind of in the 20s, that can really determine a person's course on how hard it is for them to either get into shape or to stay in shape.
Yeah, definitely. For that, I feel like definitely the habits is way more important, because you have people, they're in college, you have way more time. So when you start that new chapter of your life, say working, if you just have it that like, oh, I'll just work, and like you're going out, you never ingrain a time where you're used to like getting up early before work to go running, or and now all of a sudden like you don't have the habit of exercising, and you don't ever have the habit of with the lifestyle, where at least if you continue on, say, I always think it's the saddest thing when I see, I would have seen a lot of people who would have gone to the Olympics and stuff, and like they give up, and like you see them 2 years later and they're like really unfit, overweight, and you're like, look, it's great to go to the Olympics or it's great to do these things, but like if you don't learn the lessons of how to be fit and healthy for your life, it's like that's the number one lesson, really. So it's funny, people can't forget those, and especially as you said in that like 20s, when they stop being like more serious about running or serious about sport, it's important that they incorporate it in. Otherwise, it can be a lot later in life if ever they get back into it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I would see that quite often with football players, Gaelic players who've maybe been training so many nights a week, and then maybe they stop training in their 30s, and suddenly they're maybe still eating the same calories or still drinking
Yeah.
the same amount, and then suddenly they balloon up in weight, and it's a real struggle for them. And they're trying to figure out, well, it was obviously that the more activity I was doing was kind of balancing things out, but
Yes. Yeah.
stop that every night training hard. Once I stopped that and maybe tried to do the gym a couple of nights or a couple of runs a week, there's still too many
Yeah.
calories
Food
going
in.
in and
Yeah.
not enough mobility, not enough movement, and yeah, it definitely catches up. But yeah,
100%.
absolutely, yeah, longevity. There's something to be said for longevity and feeling good, moving good.
Oh, big time.
So
It's the only thing.
yeah,
It's like that thing. It's like the man who has his health has 1,000 wishes. The man without his health has only one. So
yeah, it's a great one. Yeah,
yeah, like it's like, look, it's the only thing.
as simple as that. Also, you're a busy man, but you do Pilates, but you're also a physiotherapist. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we do. I've Everard Pilates, and as I said to you, I'm working on this thing called the back aware belts. So
Yeah.
would have come from the physiotherapy background. So I would have seen a lot of patients come to me, you give them exercises to do, and then they come back and they're not doing them correctly. So I was always like, oh, if I had some piece of equipment that could help with this, and that's then that formulate the idea for the back aware belt. It's like technology. You wear this belt, it gives you feedback, so it vibrates when you go into a poor position. So that all came from like the physio. I mainly focus on like lower back pain and a little bit of leg pain, but stay away from shoulders, basically.
Yeah.
Shoulders and arms.
Yeah, so it's mainly focuses on the low back. Does it cover the whole back, the belt then, or is it?
No, it only covers the lowest part of the back, like the lower back. But generally you want to have good movement. There's a thing called like the joint by joint concept, and essentially it's like every second joint has one primary function, either to be mobile or stable.
Mm-hmm.
So like the arch of the foot, you know it by what are the falls. So when people have fallen arches, essentially the arch is moving too much.
Yes.
We get like stiff through our ankle, so there should be good mobility at our ankle.
Yeah.
We should be like stable at the knee. It should only kind of flex and extend. And a lot of the issues we see is when people are like buckling in at their knees or valgus, and that can cause like excessive strain at the knee. The hip is a hip and socket joint, so a ball and socket joint, so that should be able to move in all directions. And again, with sitting and everything, it gets very stiff. And then the lower back should be quite stable, and then the upper back should have good extension. So focusing on just trying to nearly stop the movement in the lower back.
Yes.
And focus, even if people are moving more, it's nearly like where I want to target. Yeah.
Yeah. And so does the belt, does it sense movement in your lower back? Or does it
senses movement. So
movement?
basically,
it's not compressive. It's not like measuring compressive forces or anything else.
No, just the movement. Yeah. And we're working on the app now where if you're exercising, you'll be able to see your position on the screen also, and then it vibrates when you go into a poor position.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, we're just working on the kind of version 2, like, so it's funny how I don't know, you just always think things just work straight out of the box. So if people go to backawarebelt.com, you can sign up for the wait list, and hopefully we have the kind of new versions ready soon enough. We have kind of beta trials going on now, so we've just adapted based on the feedback. So it's interesting in that way, that way you can just to see a product nearly being born.
Yeah, no, it must be. I'm sure it's time consuming and tiring and all that, but I'm sure it'll be like a childbirth whenever it's all ready to go.
Yeah, like it is. I get like when it works well, like say if they send me something and it works the way, you flex and there it goes, and then you extend, because again, you'd see people doing planks and they're arching their back, and you're like, you're not actually feeling that in the core. So you do it and it works the way it should. It's like, honestly, it's like an unbelievable high for me. Like it's unreal. But then, if something goes wrong, or at the moment we're dealing, like, I'll tell you what, like literally today on the new belts, the man's like, yeah, they're working great. I was like, oh, brilliant. Now you have to order, like hundreds of these on, if you say 5, they're like, okay, that's going to be X thousand.
Yeah.
So you may as well order like 100 at least. So I was like, he had checked 5, the engineer, he's in Germany. And it was like, yeah, brilliant. I was like, oh, great. Cause I had this 95, I can bring him over. And he's like, yeah, but actually like where the circuit board is relative to the little hole in the casing is off by a mil. I'm like, oh, so then they all have to be scrapped. So at least it's working well, but they'll have to go back now get made again, and everything moved over like a mill, and you're like, this is just breaking my heart.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
Yeah, but look, we're getting there. We are getting there.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's great. Yeah.
So whenever you say,
really believe in it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you get funders for that? Do you have to fund it yourself, or investors?
Enterprise Ireland are brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
They've given me money, and I've just funded a lot of it myself. And then hopefully, once we get the kind of concept up and running, we get like interest in it, I'll maybe look for additional funding then to kind of take it on. Because my wife, like, it's like, in fairness, like I lecture here, and I physio and the Pilates, so I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
My wife would be like, "What are you doing?" It's like, to be like, she won't put, like, we have a joint account, but she's like, we'll have separate accounts here, because I was just like literally spending everything I had. And she's like, I was like, can you put in money as well? And she's like, no, because if this fails, we need to have still like, we still need to have some money.
Like, somebody.
So yeah, she's like, what are you doing? Like, because it's not even, I think, I'll be, I'm very, yourself, like you said, if you're fit and you're doing stuff you enjoy, like, it's nice to have nice things, but it's like, I'm driving a 2011 BMW and I'm happy out. Like, I love it. Like, you put down the accelerator, it goes.
Yeah.
I'm in a nice house, so it's not like I need a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, like I get funding eventually, because she's like, look, you can't keep. I was just piling money into this thing.
Yeah.
Like, one guy took, it's just a learning curve. Like, one guy, you have to like get everybody together in China if you're making them. He's like, oh, look, I'll do all that for you. He was like a Chinese American dude, and he just took 10 grand, and I basically never saw him again. So, he sent me over some piece of shit, and then he was like, oh yeah, no, yeah, phase one's gone well. But I was like, where is the thing? Like, what am I meant to look at here? And he goes, not ready, but if you give me another 15, then you're going to see the big things.
It's like one of those scam emails you get.
Honestly, like I was just like, with this thing, because you're a little bit deluded at times and new to it. Like, I was one step off, like, the Prince of Nigeria ringing me saying he could help me out. If he in an email said, listen, I have funding for a back wear belt, he probably would have got in.
Picked the right moment to get you.
Yeah, exactly.
So whenever you talk about the back wear belt, whenever you're saying it goes off, or it shows you when you're in a bad position. When you say a bad position, do you mean like when you're not in a neutral position, or excessive?
Yeah, not in a neutral
flexion, or excessive.
Yeah, exactly.
Extension?
Excessive flexion. Like, obviously there's times you can go into those, but I think as well, I think it's just teaching people more the body awareness. I think sometimes what can get lost is we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, it's more like, some people like to go into different flexions, or they look at the Jefferson curls or whatever, but there's difference between like being able to really control that with your muscular system, and then just like not doing a deadlift and just like rounding at your back and not engaging anything. Like, it's, so I think those two things, it's more about getting people aware. Like, you could use this to make people go into a pelvic tilt. It will just show you when you're moving.
Yes.
And I went to there's a chiropractor in Laois. He's worked a lot with the golfers. Oh my God, his name's Shane Lawler. And he was saying, like, I was just showing him, and he really liked the concept. He's like, even just to get like my clients to be able to actually move at their back, like arch their back down, come up, and actually see that, because they can't really feel that, or they're kind of rocking at their hips.
Yeah.
So, and then, to be able to stabilize is important. Yeah. So it's just catching the movement. And for me, as I said, a lot of times I think it's just, I like the neutral spine. I am a proponent of like Stuart McGill. I like his thinking, but even if people aren't, I think it's more the control is important. You feel like obviously range of motion and all is important, but the control is most important.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I would routinely train people deadlifting from people who had never touched a bar or anything. And as you say, the lack of awareness of what's going on back there is crazy. Sometimes sometimes people get it first time without, ever having to do too much or tell them too much. Sometimes I find it's the people who've maybe had a back issue or a back injury, or they've done a bit of lifting and they've maybe created bad habits. Those are the ones that are almost, you have to almost convince them how to use their hips to hinge.
Yes, 100%.
And some people worry nearly too much about getting a perfectly straight back, that
Yeah.
they're getting in the wrong positions in other places. So maybe their knees are coming forward too much, but they're worried about their
Yeah.
back being straighter. Yeah, but I think I get exactly what you're saying.
100%, like, because, and even I would say to people, like, yeah, exactly. Like, even if you look at those, the old school posters, it's like people's knees are nearly touching the ground. And it's like, it's more about like, what's the primary joint taking the pressure? Like, there's no doubts with the glutes around the hips should be the first joint to move. So even if we're doing things, say, like, if there's something on the ground, it's just to get, as you said, push back through your hips, move through the hips initially, let them take the majority of the weight. Now, if the knee bend, then I say, then work on a knee bend, then work on the back bend. If they have to take a little bit of it, no problem, because the glutes, the biggest muscles in the body, the hips are taking the predominant load. Whereas you said, that's different from someone either trying to keep their back completely rigid, taking all the pressure through their knees, or the person just bending at their back, not using their hips at all, and then just like flexing through that. And again, a deadlift is a leg exercise. So even when people are like, oh, well, I don't mind them rounding, it's like, nobody's doing a deadlift to strengthen their back. So the argument of, well, I don't mind them moving at their back, it's like, well, that's not the focus of this exercise. So even if you don't mind it, like, and as you said, a little bit of whatever, but you should be, as you standing up and back. And I feel sometimes with people, like, I know chatting to you before, like, okay, you know what to do with elites, but you're used to seeing general public come into you, and that's where, like, even as a physio, that's where you see massive improvements, just cleaning up movement patterns. Because sometimes people are talking about, like, with elite athletes, or like unbelievable, essentially specimens of humans, and then arguing these like little details, like, as I said, the flexion versus non-flexion. It's like, lads, if you were in the weeds of this, you would realize, like, this isn't like getting them some way aware, getting their muscles some way strong. You don't have to start like breaking down the nth degrees of this. It's just like clean movement patterns, get them stronger. As you said, get them eating less, is going to be like 95% of it. And then we can talk about the 5% after that.
Yeah. I heard somebody saying one time recently, actually, they were saying about how in some ways training elite athletes is almost easier because they've got the explosiveness. Okay, so they got the fast twitch. So say you're trying to train somebody to be whatever, a sprinter, and you're going to do weightlifting with them, heavy deadlift, squats, or whatever. But they're so good at learning movement patterns. They're gifted at that. They can, even if they've never done it, they can pick it up really quickly, generally speaking. But if you get somebody in off the street, you have to think a bit harder. You have to work a little bit harder to try and actually tidy up some of their faulty movement patterns from sitting, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
The elite athlete whose sleep's tuned in, whose eating, nutrition's tuned in, recovery, mobilization, they're doing all of those things outside of it. And then you get someone who's just sat on the sofa for 10 or 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
have to get their joints moving and staying in good positions and being stable where they need to be stable and having movement where they need to have movement.
Yeah, we always say that, like, if you're looking at, totally, like, so, and they have, like, if you're an athlete or you're someone that is naturally sporty, it's like, that's the probably skill you have. Like, I'm sure the two of us were, like, kinesthetically just very good. Some people are very good with music. Some people are very good. If I had to go versus someone who's played piano or played different things, and then they're learning a new instrument, they got, like, basic understandings of things they can move compared to me. Off the street, as you said, I think three key things need to be addressed if people are trying to improve movement. The first is good mobility. You need to, at the ankle, at the hip, at the upper back, work on the movement there. If they are stiff through those joints, no amount of stability will work, because our evolution hasn't gone on that far. We're basically designed to move, because if I can't move, I'm either going to be hunted or I'm not going to be able to get food. So I will always able to compensate. That's why, as a physio, I see so much, say, knee pain and back pain, way more than hip pain. You only get hips at the very end when they're completely worn out. But not a lot of people complain of hip pain until it's time for a replacement. Because if that joint gets stiff and it's not moving, you move different places, because we're just designed to be able to move. So people are moving excessively in their lower back, they're moving excessively in their knee, And that seems to then cause a lot of the problems. So a lot of things initially is get moving better at the ankle, get moving better at the hip. And then the ways you can do that are generally joint mobility. If you're doing joint mobility, you're just moving it through the range, and you got to move it through the range 30 times.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. And then like static stretching or PNF stretching, and then your foam rolling. And if you're going to do foam rolling stretching, do the foam rolling first. If there's a knot here, we want to release that off and then move. The second thing, once that's done, as you said, it's about activating the right muscles, just like learning how to like switch on the glutes, switch on the core. I would say this before, it's like motor control or learning the technique is the third thing. But I've had it where, you know, if you put a band around someone's knees when they're buckling in, that teaches someone to push their legs out. But if they haven't learned how to like activate, say, the glute clam or glute medius muscle by doing like glute clams or doing like in all fours, kind of window wipers with their leg. It's not, I've had it before. What's going to happen is they're going to tighten up through their TFLs and their IT bands. Because you haven't like activated the muscles. Yes, they can do it that it looks similar, but no, it's not. You haven't like taken that second step. So the second step is really to make sure that you're activating the muscles. And then the third step is that motor awareness, that motor control. So like that's where the back aware belt can help, or as you said, you're going to personal trainers to make sure you're actually doing the action correctly. You know that your back's in that right position and you're able to contract the core. You know, you're moving through the hips because you've opened them up and you've arranged that kind of new ones. And just following that step-by-step method of first mobility, then stability, then motor control. It can all be in the one session. But that's what you need to do to kind of clear up the movements.
One of the challenges we have here is, say we've got classes or larger classes and you try to include some mobility or some sort of warm-up, and sometimes people would get the impression that if they do that for 5 minutes twice a week, they're good to go, you know. And that counteract all the other sitting or all the other lines they're lying about. And you know, there's the joints just, they don't work like that, do they? I mean, 10 minutes plus a week isn't going to go very far if you're trying to change things.
Look, it helps, you know, because sometimes people, but like, as you said, I always bring the hockey ball to bed. It's about doing ways like when I'm reading, I'm sitting on that hockey ball, I'm releasing that off. And then, like you said, then like also activating the muscles. I have people come to me, oh, I have hip pain or I have back pain. And I'm doing this like, you know, like the figure 4 stretch from my glutes, and it's not helping.
No.
I'm like, you're sitting on your ass for 10 hours a day. And you thought this 30-second stretch was going to do what exactly? We need to get these muscles burning, get them switched back on, because yes, they're, and like debatable how much it's going to help, but they're trying to help the mobility, but there's 2 other elements to this. Really, and it's really about getting them back and moving correctly. You know, someone goes into you twice a week, Stuart, it's like you're getting them moving through the whole range. Once they're doing that correctly, it's like the mobility and the activations are kind of working in tandem. So it's about, it's, as you said, it's about doing a little bit more each time, but it's really about burning things and getting things really working as well.
No, it's great. I could talk to you about mobility and all that sort of stuff all day, but with other things to discuss, I don't want to take all your time. But what about, tell us about your books. You've written a couple of books. And
go on.
And they're available all good bookstores online. And
one is, the 2 are free, so they're just like, basically I'd write a lot of articles for like different newspapers around Ireland. So I just made one. It's like how to get to the line in the best shape possible. You can get that at everardpilates.com/book. That one is just like basically about like running, at like what type of running training to do, you know, ways best sleep or health and injury stuff. Second one was and again, that's free, so you can download it. You can buy it. It's in Kilkenny in the bookshops, but I just haven't bothered putting it out elsewhere.
I downloaded that myself there earlier.
Oh yeah, brilliant. And
I found an audio version with you reading it. The Americans are going to love that. You need to get in the American market.
I know. I love audiobooks. I never listen to I only read like fiction or autobiographies. I just don't like, so I love audiobooks, and I just did that during COVID, so it's it's not great, but it's just good just to like listen along. Then I have Secrets of a Healthy Spine, which is just more like, again, articles on back pain, and you can get that at backawarebelt.com/backbook. And again, that's just, these are like they're my best articles on like what to do to keep your back healthy, or, you know, just giving like general things about like do's and don'ts or myths about back pain. And like, even if you're getting to a stage where you might need surgery, generally don't go for surgery if you actually have back pain. You should only be going for surgery if you've getting like pins and needles below your knee, you know, or say if you're getting a drop foot. Okay, and then like, how do you look out for the right surgeon for you, or what can you do before that to just try help you avoid the surgery? And then the last one is a textbook. I need to, as I was saying to you, update the photos. It's called the Functional Screening Solution. So I would have lectured a lot in biomechanics and in like human movement and screening and assessing movement. And what I found was like the FMS was brilliant for you know, getting people aware of how to assess movement. There are limitations with it. You should do a jump test as well. But what's more important, what I found then was like nobody really knew how to like correct these issues. So that book is basically just all about like, all right, if someone has a poor squat, how do you fix it? If someone has a poor lunge, these are the exercises. And it just is like we said, here's the mobility exercises that you should do initially. Here's the stability exercises and why. And here then is the motor control. Generally, there's two things with motor control. Well, three. One is feedback that we're doing. Second one is like holding on to something, external assistance. We call it like doing the journey. So essentially, like you might be able to squat, but if you hold on to something initially, just get used to going into the right movement, keeping the knees out, doing things correctly, and taking that demand away from it. Same if it's a lunge, you could hold on to something, practicing the action, and then over time you go from like something really stable like a bar or whatever, then maybe go to like a band that's like still giving you that support, but you're kind of having to work a bit more to like holding like a weight in a counter position to no weight, and then you can load up. And then that's the other thing in that book is like, I think the myth with good movement, or the thing I find is that people are either like all about correcting the movement and like getting people moving correctly, and then don't do a lot on the fitness side. And then on the other side, people are like, forget that, we'll just like train you because you want to train. And I think it's like the best way to do it is, as I'd say, if I was doing with teams or even like people, if someone's like really poor of a squat, say, I break my gym into like an A block, a B block, a C, D, and E block. So if I have someone who's really poor at a squat, but they can lunge correctly, well, when I'm doing A for power, I'm going to do like maybe sleds, because I'm not going to do jumps, because if they're poor at jumps. So I'm not going to like load up a pattern that's poor. Same, instead of like strength, instead of doing squats, I'm going to do like a split squat because I know they can do a lunge correctly. Happy with that. And then the same, C and D are like kind of circuits or work capacity or anatomical adaptation, that kind of like just getting robust and fit. So I might do split squats, you might do like kettlebell swings if the hinge is okay, you know, upper body push and pull, get everything in there. And then in the E block is corrections, and then in that block I'm going to have a section for correcting the squat, you know. So now we can do either the mobility work we need, we can do like the basic core work, or we can just like said have the back aware belt on, holding on to something, sitting back in, and making sure that we can like, you know, not curl through the back as we come down, that we're moving through the hips, practicing the technique. The other last thing you can do for motor control is a thing called reactive neuromuscular technique or training, which is make the fault worse. Sometimes, say if my knees are buckling in, I'm not aware of that. It's like that idea of like, if you got caught smoking and your dad made you smoke 20, it's like, because he wants you to realize this is the effect of this. So if you push people's knees in further, that's what the band does, but people don't realize. It's just to switch the brain on to realize, all right, this is definitely wrong. What do I do? Well, you know, those glute clam work, because I've been working on the activations before, I can use those to like push it back out. Or if you find someone's falling forward, pull them forward more. So then they get an awareness, oh, that's wrong. They'll then correct themselves, and then you do the action. And you can do that like arms forward, pull them forward. You know, if they're moving a lot on the lunge, pull them to one side. That'll get them to like stiffen the core. But don't do those until you've got the basic activations right, until you've got the movements right.
I think that's massive. You're saying there about even just bringing awareness to the situation, so you can obviously do those things. But I debated for a long time in our gym whether to put mirrors in or not put mirrors in,
Yeah.
and sometimes even letting them see, just
Oh,
have
100%.
just even visually going, oh wait, I'm doing that. That doesn't look right, and then that can fix for me a multitude of problems for
Big
clients.
time. Big time. Getting
But
that visual feedback is
yeah,
massive.
it's like trying to balance, stand on one leg and then close your eyes and try and do it. And when you take away the feedback, it becomes more difficult. So feedback loops are massive, aren't they, as well?
Absolutely, absolutely massive. And as you said, if the more they can kind of like get it themselves, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. With regards to running biomechanics, I think I told you last week on the phone. I don't know very much about running. We're going to be very upfront about that. But you're even saying there about there's a fitness and there's a technique involved in obviously running. There's also the aerobic side of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we merge the two and go, I'm good at running, I'm not good at running, or I'm fit or I'm not fit. But there's kind of at least two elements to it, isn't there? There's the aerobic side of it, but
100%.
there's also the you could run 5K, but maybe you shouldn't run 5K yet because your mechanics might break down.
Yeah, you see that a lot of people
Trigger.
going for like marathons and stuff where like, if you basically, right, this guy Jack Daniels would have been one of the like kind of preeminent people in running, and he'd always say that your long run should be no more than like say 25 to max 33% of your mileage. Now, a lot of people violate that because they don't have the like conditioning done. Essentially, they're not used to running say 10 miles or like 8 mile runs. So especially you see it for marathons, people doing like a 5 mile run, day off, 5 mile run, maybe a 6 mile run or a 7 mile run, day off, 18 miles.
Yeah.
Do you know? So if you go say 10, they did 17 and then they're doing 18 miles. So that's a 50% long run. That's just too much. Like you're going to injure yourself doing that. But they're like, well, if I'm going to do a marathon, I need to get the long run. It's like, yeah, but you can't skip one step because I want to get step two. It's basically, I want to get to step 3. So I need to do step 2. It's like, yeah, but to get to step 2, you need to do step 1.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't doing that. And I think the answer is either drop down to a half marathon and just get good at that, or drop down to a 10K and get your body fast and strong, because a lot of people start running to get fit and healthy. And then they get kind of caught up on like, well, I've done a 5K, I've done a 10K. And now it's a thing of like, I just want to do a marathon, which is a grand goal. But it's like, and then people get stuck on doing marathons. It's like, yeah, but you don't really have the conditioning. And are you much fitter or healthier than you thought you'd be? Like I would preach to anyone that they should be. Now, I do run just a lot, but, doing a Pilates, do the gym twice a week, do running on the other 3 days.
Yeah.
You're going to be so much healthier and looking better than a person who's running, say, 6 days a week and doing 18, 19 miles on the weekend, or running 5 days, and just feeling a bit bed up. So, the other element you see there, you're talking about the aerobic and the anaerobic, is if you're doing distance running, you need to train aerobically. I would recommend everybody get a lactic test. If they want to reach out to me, everardpilates@gmail.com. I don't do them, but I've literally just made a list of people around the country and in the UK who do them. Like just rang the universities and different places. Because they only cost about £100 or €100, and you only need to get one done once. But you can't improve like aerobic. You can't improve aerobic, which you need for 5K and above, training anaerobically. It'd be like if I came to you going, I want to be like an Olympic powerlifter, which is like an explosive event. And the only training we ever did was reps of like 12 to 15. It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
And even though I'd be wrecked after 12 to 15, in ways it could be harder. Like, and then I'm going to go to the event and it's like, I'm going to go okay at the start, but after a while, it's like, it's going to be limiting. And that's what people do. It's like, you need to train aerobically, like underneath 80%. You should be able to like sing a line of a song, but really just get a lactic test. Everybody has €100 now. So, you could save up for that. So I was broke when I started college and I was able to save up for that, So, whereas what happens is people either go out and just try run 5K as hard as they can or 10K as hard as they can, which no actual 5K or 10K runner has ever done. Yeah. I've never actually just gone out and run. I'm like 13 minutes, 58 or whatever. I've never gone out and just ran a 5K. The only time I've ever, honestly, the only time I've ever ran that 10K was for that race.
Yeah.
Because you're doing interval sessions.
Yes.
And you're training the aerobic system. So you're spending longer training that system, but you're staying aerobic. When people go out and run as hard as they can, say the first 2K is aerobic, and then as they get really tired, they're actually going into the anaerobic system. They're going above 80%.
Yes.
And it feels harder, but now what you're training is your ability to tolerate lactic. It's your ability to tolerate, like, you know, when you do a 400, your legs are burning. You're teaching your body how to tolerate lactic, which is fine, but that's not going to help you for a 5K race.
Yes.
You're going to just run the same time each time, or slightly better, because what you're training is, I'll be aerobic for the first little bit and then I'll be tired, and now I'll be just able to like dig in and still run at a certain speed with lactic. Whereas what you need to do is like stay running aerobically, and that tops up over time, that 80%. If you stay aerobic, the lungs, the heart change, so you stay aerobic for longer. Now, when you do your lactic training session, or you do your run race, you're in the aerobic zone, running faster. What would have been anaerobic, now you're aerobic for say 4K, and now when you move into your anaerobic zone, you only have less to do.
Yes.
So you can hold it. So, like that's the, and it's like, you know what, it's like harder training the way people are doing it. That I see kind of lets people down. They need to know their zones, and they need to stay in those zones if they want to improve aerobically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great advice and really good insight from you there.
Does that make sense what I said?
Yeah. Even to a numpty like me, when it comes to running, that made sense.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, just because a lot of people, Stuart, would be in your class, they're like trying to like even be fit or healthy. And even with the, like, if you're doing like functional fitness, there's thing with the nervous system as well. Like, we don't want, you know, Charlie Francis, the sprint coach, would have said it. You want a high nervous system day, a low nervous system day. So if you're doing like, if you're in the gym, take that as your high nervous system day, and you could do some like strides or sprints. And then the next day, if you're doing an aerobic session, keep it aerobic.
Yeah.
Because then that allows the nervous system to relax, but you're still burning a lot of your calories. You're still improving that like cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah.
You know, then you might have your day off, then you're back in the gym. And that can be the, you know, that's when you can kind of push and work that anaerobic system, you know, really get things working, getting the muscles working, and then go back to your aerobic. And that would be such a nice little like.
Yeah. Active recovery, I think, is what was it, I don't know, it's probably been around that phrase before. CrossFit is big on that, active recovery. So it's never a rest day, it's active recovery.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to ask you about is you've obviously got your biomechanics, you've got your aerobics, you've got all that, you've got kind of a couple of different elements going on there, but also the mental side of it, the mental toughness that's required to do distance running. I know I don't have it, but do you think that can be trained as much as anything else? Yeah.
And like, runners are very mentally tough. The thing that annoys me the most is when people think like when they tire and they go slower, that it's a mental thing. It's not a mental thing. It's a physical thing. If I hooked you up to a heart rate monitor, I guarantee you've been at your like in your red zone for way longer than the winner has. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because like people get used to being in that anaerobic zone, busting themselves.
Yeah.
And then you are going to tire. It's just physiology. So the ways you can practice that are doing like interval reps. So like, you know, rather than say doing a 5K the whole way through, do 3 minutes, take a minute off, 3 minutes, because you'll be able to like hold on to something for like the last minute of 3 minutes. If I'm in the middle of a 5K and I have to hold on for 2K, forget it. Like, there's no human going to do that.
No.
So like, you know, I had it for a year where I was running terrible. I was running like a donkey. And but I wasn't fit, really. But at the time, my coach was like, no, like, it's not my fault. So, you know, and I believed him. I was like, yeah, you know, you're right. It's like, you must be just mentally weak. Without saying that. So I was going to psychologists. I was writing stuff on the mirror, all this baloney, like. And then ran like a donkey, all this stuff, positive thoughts, and oh my God, did it all. Next year, I was like, obviously low in new coach, was fitter, but I remember going down to this race, and my coach was like, why haven't you ran a PB, like a personal best, in like 3 years? And I was like, if I could tell you that. So that was my positive talk going to this race. It's like, yeah, you ran crap for 3 years. What's going on? And I mean, me not being like, yeah, today's different. Me going, yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. Like, so, but because I was fitter, did the race, naturally, everybody in the race wants to do their best.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's 4 C's to get confidence. Confidence being the last one. The one before that is competence. You need to, I had it before as well, where when I was trying to break the 14 minutes for 5K, I ran like 14:30 for me, which was a poor time. And I was chatting to a guy, it's all relative, isn't it? Chatting to a guy afterwards. And I was like, oh, look, I'm really want to break this 14 minutes. And he said it so well. He's like, what have you done in training that's indicating you should do that?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, there's nothing. I haven't done one kind of proper session. So if you want to break, say, 20 minutes for 5K, at some stage you want to go to the track and maybe do 5 by 1K with like 90 seconds off in 4-minute Ks.
Mm-hmm.
That would then tell you that you have the confidence. Go into a race and never done that, or showing though, before I was at this heart rate and at this pace, and now because I've done my aerobic training, I'm at same heart rate and a quicker pace. So I'm aerobically fitter.
Yeah.
But people don't do that. People go and they're like, oh, I just don't believe in myself. It's like, so that was so good. You need confidence. You need to have said, I've done this training, so that's why I'll be confident. Yeah. And then what that needs is you need consistency. You need that's just like, are you getting out doing the training regularly?
Yeah.
And over time, it'll come, like some races go good for me still, some races go terrible. But over time, no one ever asked me, when I'm on these podcasts, they're like, oh, wow, you're 5-time national champion and world 3K champion. That's what they ask. If they wanted, they could ask, yeah, remember you ran like a donkey there in the 5 mile this year, which I did. You came 50th in that other race, which I did. No one ever asked that.
Yeah.
Thank God, So it's just but I know, look, if I was recovering from COVID with that 50th place or 35th place.
Yeah.
I just know if I just keep training, eventually it'll turn. Yeah. And then that gives you like why I think runners or people who train regularly, they have courage, they get up, they get out. That's the mental side that's the hardest. If you're like able to just get up and get out and train and keep it consistent, that's mental training. Like there's a line, awesome. Everybody has the will to win, few have the will to prepare. So it really annoys me when I hear people, oh, I'm just not mentally strong. It's like, you're way stronger than you think you are, way stronger. Mm-hmm. And like everybody's going to balk at some stage if they're not at a fitness level and they're trying to run at that pace.
Yeah, massive. I can relate to that even like from a weightlifting point of view. So if someone's going to enter a powerlifting competition, or even clients who don't, or not clients, but gym members who just go into a gym and just lift whatever on any given day, just kind of, I'll do this today, I'll do this weight the next day, and there's no kind of clear plan. It's you're not gonna, if you're deadlifting 150 kilos, you're not going to go in the next week and go, I'll try 250 kilos or I'll try 200 kilos. You have to put in the work to get up to that. And then if you enter a competition or you're going to go for whatever, a 1 rep max or for a set of 3 or 5 or something, you have to put in the work beforehand. Not miss sessions.
And if you didn't, exactly. And if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be like, oh, just mentally weak there this today. It's like, no. It's more obvious with that. It's like, what have you done in training? Have you done a 3 rep max that would indicate this is your 1 rep max? And if not, like pretend, thinking it's a mental thing is just, I don't believe in it.
Or people maybe lifted it 10 years ago, whatever weight, and they think they can go back in, do a couple of sessions and then try that weight again. It just
100%.
It doesn't happen. You've either got the strength that comes off the ground or it doesn't come off the ground. It's like a truth test, you can't really, there's no ifs and has about it. But with regards to, I don't want to keep you too long. Owen, have you got much longer you can chat?
I do.
I was going to ask you, just in case. No worries. I was going to ask you about where you see the kind of future. So we've got this, the back aware belt. Do you see any other kind of products out there, either that are similar or that you like where things are going with regards to technology?
Oh, there's so much on technology, isn't it? Like to be fair,
I can't keep up. I'm
not mad on, like, I love heart rate training. I love the fact, like, the lactics are something I'm big for runners now, because I love that things are getting cheaper. I think there is a lot of gimmicks. Now, for some people, if they love them, like, you know, your Whoop and things like that you can monitor, brilliant. I'm not mad on that. I just more like the feel.
Yeah.
But the heart rate and the lactic tests now being available for like €100, £100, when it would have been like £300-400 and nobody would have had the things except for elite athletes. Stuff like that is brilliant. So no, I'm not. How are you for the technology? I'm not brilliant on it.
I've got like a little Casio. That's like my heart rate monitor.
Do you know what? I have a Casio. I don't bring my phone to bed. I just leave it in another room.
Yeah,
and you got to be careful with those. I think the Whoops and the Aura rings, like, they're brilliant, but just don't get like obsessed with it. I like more the stuff for training. No, and then with the back aware belt, there's nothing really like it out there. Like, in ways it would have been easier if there was, because I could have just, if I'd have looked up and found something, I'd be like, all right, great, good to know.
I don't need to do that now. I don't
need to do that. Yeah. Wouldn't have literally like dominated the last 3 years of my life. But there isn't, so that's why I want to do it.
No, I can't keep up with the technology. I get people ask me all the time about certain technologies, and as you said, there's a lot of gimmicks, isn't there? There's a lot of things out there that are just kind of like, if somebody's got money to spend and the marketing's good, they're probably gonna spend it on something like that.
And just, I find with the Whoop sometimes, like, I think when used well, brilliant, but then like there's a thing where like even I listen to the guy who's talking about sleep, but there's such a paradox of sleep. He's talking about like the deep sleep being so important. I didn't sleep deep then. You know, if you're like, oh shit, I better get that deep sleep, you know. And like, my friend coaches a lot more people, and he's like, they wake up and we have a friend, right? He's like obsessed with his Garmin. And his Garmin was picking up his heart rate wrong. The Garmin was wrong. And he dropped out of a session because he was like, no, I'm not feeling good. You know, it was like, God, you're fine. Like, you didn't by his breathing. It's like, you are grand. No. And then gone, you know. And then he even said it. He's like, now, he wouldn't always do that. That was just one time, but that did happen. It was like, you know, or my friend was like, oh, if there's a poor recovery today. Sometimes it's like, I like things like checking my heart rate and stuff like that, like to confirm things. So if I wake up and like, I'm feeling crap, check the heart rate and it's up 10 beats. It gives you that permission. It's great that way because it gives you the permission to like, or if I had the Whoop strap or whatever, it gives you the permission to go, you know what, you aren't feeling good. That's, whereas, or if it's good, you might be like, look, I'd probably be able to get away with it. Maybe it's just a headache. That I like it as this is how I feel in my body. I'll give a quick check, as opposed to this tells me how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I there's one day I came into the gym and did the morning sessions, and then afterwards just felt terrible. I was getting a headache, getting sweats, getting a temperature, and I stuck on the blood pressure monitor I have here, and just like, what is going on? My heart rate was like way up, and blood pressure was like, I was just like, this is not good. So I'm never really sick. So I thought there's definitely something on here. So I had to cancel evening sessions and go home. Now, did a COVID test and all that stuff, and then the next day I was right as rain. It was just like a 24-hour thing, but it was, I definitely couldn't have. I was exhausted. I was trying to put together some equipment, and every turn of the spanner I would just have to like lie down and go and recover. It was weird. So it was nice to have some sort of visual confirmation.
Because it's nearly go back to what we say when people think they're mentally weak, and it's like, you're the opposite. So sometimes I find that it's like, it's nice just to have something that actually tells you, no, you're not feeling good now.
I used to, whenever I was training really elderly clients, what I would do for some of them, I would stick on like a polar chest strap. Brilliant. Just to kind of keep an eye on their heart rate, because there's some of them, like, you know, that old school mentality where they just
push, like,
they want to go into the red, and you're like, whoa, and then you can kind of jump on that pretty quickly at least. But
that's why I like the lactics as well, because as I said, it's like once you're up to that heart rate, you're done. Like, you just stay at that or go a little bit below it. So where a lot of people are like, oh, I feel good, I can keep going. It's like, but you're not working the right system now.
Yeah, perfect. Eoin, we'll call it quits here, and
great. Thank you so much.
Chat stage, but thank you very much for your time. Just if you're listening and you would like to follow Eoin online, you can follow him on Instagram. Everard Pilates, I believe, is your handle. You're on LinkedIn as well. You're on YouTube. You're on Facebook. Everard Physio and Pilates, and you've got a couple of websites: backawarebelt.com, everardpilates.com as well. Is that everything?
Perfect. Thanks. You can check out those books. If people want to join the wait list for the back aware belt, to be great.
Spot on, Eoin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.